is just meant for you to keep browsing, and we're going to play another couple tunes before we get officially started. Just so I know, and for the folks here at Malvern Books, is this anybody's first time coming into the store? So let's see, so that's good to know. For Stephanie, did you hear that question I asked?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and hands raised, first time in the store? Nice. Actually, and I'm on the end of a 4-month tour, and my first time in the store was the beginning of this 4-month tour in early March. I came in here, which set things in motion to have me come. And who all knows Jerry Higgins? Great musician who's on a few of my CDs. And actually, why don't we replay, if you go to the further reaches of YouTube, you get your banjo out, we could duplicate. We played something. We had a friend, I had a friend for a while, I haven't been in touch with her for years, who was a filmmaker, and she got permission to have us go into the Texas State Capitol and play some fiddle banjo, and we played a tune with the great name of Texas, and I did a poem with that I don't often do, and don't often play this tune except with Jerry. So we're going to do this, which will be appropriate for being in Austin and with what we'll do later. So we'll play a tune called Texas. I've been doing this 4-month tour, and doing the Trump poems or political poems is not what I often or always do, but I do more with the music, a poem like this. Since Jerry, who here, is anybody here taking a banjo lesson from Jerry? Anybody else? Austin is full of people who take lessons from Jerry, so I got a poem. in honor of Jerry called Learning Banjo. And I do this one a lot, not just with Jerry. You know I do it a lot, but I have to look at the book. Right hand scrunch tight with a claw, thumb out like you need a lift. Knock the far first wide with the right forefinger's nail. Knock again, brushing strings. Mini stub of a thumb following the pick, a short near high G. Then bump titty. Tick tock, a little pocket watch, going loco. Put up a prep your left ring finger, hammering on your blood like raw whiskey bubbling in a still. You see yourself outside the front porch to twang. Strung long neck drum. Your one-day frau, fast as fishtails in the wild drunk time. For cross-tuned and wrecked. Old time Alaska fiddlers. So I got this Alaska fiddler, we got another Alaska fiddler who may come up and play some fiddle today. And just so I know too, who all are musicians who are here? That's a good number. And who all are writers who are here? Jerry can't raise his hand, he's a writer too. I just find out who's all there. And who's all been up to Alaska? And Beth doesn't really count, she's more Alaskan than I am, but who all's been to Alaska in the winter? It's nice. The hands, often people will raise their hand proudly, and when I say who's been to Alaska in the winter, and they go down so fast. We'll get Stephanie to do a more formal introduction and do the show of sorts. You want to come up and play something, Beth?
Sure.
Since you signed the release, you can you want to use one of my fiddles, or there's that one that you played before?
I'll stick on guitar.
Stick on guitar? What do you want to play? You do I'm going to play Chinkapin Humming?
Yeah.
Play Chinkapin Humming? Here's one that I do often that'll be appropriate. It's like an Americana poem with a fiddle tune. And actually, some of the CDs that are over there, Jerry's played on 1, 2, 3, I think 4 of those CDs. And I remember, and it's a long time ago now, that I flew Jerry up a couple times to Alaska. The first time he's been to Alaska. One was in middle of December, early December, I guess it was. It was never warmer than -20 in Fairbanks, so it was cold. And then he came up in June where it was like not this hot, but it was this light at like all times of day, 11, 12 at night. And we played this tune. It's called Chinkapin Hunting, and I have a poem that goes with it. So it's on. It's one of my favorite things to do. And the poem is. It mentions Texas too, so it's nice to play this. And I haven't played this one on this trip in a while. Pontiac, the mother spoke, spun the wheel, and routed back on the road aiming for Los Angeles, the Pacific, beyond. And later I ended up in Alaska. For me, it was beyond. I'll explain after the introduction about how these things go, but we'll get Stephanie here, who's going to say a few words.
For coming out to Malvern Books on this lovely Sunday. As Ken has said, he's going to be reading from his collection Trump Sonnets Volume 1, which we have available for sale over on that table over there with many other books and CDs, so please check those out after the reading. And so, as far as introductions, Ken Waldman has to his name 6 previous poetry collections, a memoir, a kid's book, and 9 CDs that combine original poetry with Appalachian-style string band music and Alaska set storytelling. Since 1995, he's been a full-time touring artist, appearing in a wide range of venues for a wide range of audiences. On November 9th, 2016, incredulous at Donald Trump's victory, Waldman scribbled, "You make George W. seem a statesman, your opening trick," which he made into the first line and a half of a sonnet. A week later, he wrote 2 more Trump-inspired sonnets. He ended up processing Donald Trump's unlikely rise to power by, sorry, that's such an understatement. He ended up processing Donald Trump's unlikely rise to power by writing 71 sonnets in the first 50 days after the 2016 election. 41 of the sonnets were in the voice of Trump, and the other 30 were addressed to him. The result, this book, an ambitious satirical look at current events. So, please welcome, or, re-welcome Ken Waldman.
Thumbs up on the music. Yeah. I properly introduce Beth Chrisman. Anybody seen Beth around town? If you go out to music, what are your bands now? Where are you playing next? Just to give a little.
Fridays at the White Horse with the Morning Actors.
Okay.
And a whole bunch of other bands.
A whole bunch of other bands. Have you ever saw the Carper Family? Yeah, she was. So I'm going to start out by mentioning who all spent time in Spokane, Washington. Anybody? There's a bookstore there called Auntie's, and I was there, let's see, May, June, 2 months ago today. It was May 2nd. I was there on I think it was a Tuesday night. And they had a nice turnout. Which I think this is a really nice turnout for a Sunday afternoon on a holiday weekend with the weather like this. And there was a nice turnout there, and in part it was because I was on the calendar, but they also, the day before, whoever was doing the events, I don't know if she had done it or had delegated it, but they had said, come see Alaska's Fiddling Poet. They put an email blast out for toe tap and fiddling, some Alaska stories and poetry, and nothing about the Trump Sonnets book. So when I played a little bit of fiddle, and I didn't have Jerry, I didn't have Beth there, it was just me, but I played a little bit, and I explained, I explained this book as I'll be explaining it, and reading from it. And some are in his voice, as Stephanie said, some are addressed to him. And in the middle, I asked if there were any questions. There were no questions. But at the end, there was somebody who said, can't you give him a chance? Can't we give him a chance? But she did it pretty diplomatically. We had a little bit of talk, and then there were some people next to her in that row who just said, we're part of the deplorables. We were not happy at this event. And so if there is anybody here who doesn't know what they're at, you can just listen, and you can leave if you want. I try to have people like what I do, and I just went to the bookstore. This is Trump Sonnets Volume 1, and as the back cover, or what Stephanie said, the unlikely rise to power. And I'll read that poem. That was the first one I wrote. And it was funny, I wrote them while I had no titles. I started writing some in his voice. I wrote some that were addressed to him. I had no titles. And this all came together pretty quick. This book was in my hand. It had a March 1st release, but it was in my hands by the inauguration, by middle of January. So it was fast. So I was writing these things, and I just handwrite these things. And they're sonnets. They're 14 lines. They have the proper formats, rhyme scheme, and everything else for that. But I had no titles. And I figured out, well, I could, to Donald Trump from wherever, all the ones addressed to him. So even though on November 9th I was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, this is called To Donald Trump from Baltimore. You make George W. seem a statesman, your opening trick. What the hell is next? Enact bills to place your orange, oversexed visage on stamps and coins. Reimagine your university. Republican top dog, you now own it all. Your context in history. We've seen just how you've wrecked all you touch. Give it time. The American people is by far your biggest brand yet. Count me in to just see where it all goes. Sue the Senate, your cabinet, run up debt to Russia and China and Mexico, that wall. Soon appears some sweet young hussy you'll have to grab. That's you, Donald. Fussy. That was the first one I wrote, and then I wrote one the next week, and I've written a lot of poems. They're just list poems, and here's the list that opens the book. To Donald Trump from Manhattan. Vindictive, vengeful, rude, mean, petulant, bullying, conniving, so much lying, cheating, swindling, exaggerating, a filthy bore, predator, miscreant, creepy little boy, strange adolescent, proud lecher, loud, crude, lewd, horrifying, terrifying, so antagonizing, thin-skinned narcissist, vicious pissant, sociopathic, misogynistic, appallingly unapologetic, unstable, insatiable, flammable, venomous old punk spoiling for trouble, an international embarrassment. Meet Donald, the next U.S. president. Which if I just said the current president, I'd be right on. It could have been yesterday or tomorrow back then. And the one thing I also didn't mention is this book, the volume 1 was a joke title, and I've just in the past week, we have completed volume 2. So it's going to be Trump Sonnets Volume 2. It's going to be 33 commentaries, 33 dreams. So I'm doing Donald Trump dream poems. It's going to be the same cover, except it's going to be, I think, bluish pastel. And be on the lookout. It'll be a January 1st release date, 2018. I ordered the same guy who published this out of Michigan is going to publish that. But it should be in my hands in the next 6 weeks or so. So just know it's out there. Because I'll read To Donald Trump from Boston. Every day, Donald, another outrage. That's the problem. People treat you as if rational. You're made of different stuff. You're from, how to say it, a darker age where a person's sole worth is judged by wage, where men get more respect by acting tough, where women can never do quite enough to be paid the same as men. Now on stage as never before, your insanity, Donald, is a grave national concern. You might think yourself a Jack Kennedy, but it's madness how you can't seem to learn what the job entails. It's public service, Donald. It's helping others, playing nice. I've been on tour. This is where I'm on tour, and I've been out west. I've been out west in some conservative places. Anybody been to Sierra Vista, Arizona? I know you played there. Cochise County, and there's a Cochise writing celebration. And I was there as one of 4 visiting writers. And we had on the opening night 5 minutes to introduce ourselves. And what I did was I played a fiddle tune and did my poem about learning to play fiddle. My sessions were called One Word and Then the Next. And there's a writer, I should have looked and see, I think when I was here, I think I saw one of his books here, a fellow named William Stafford. Anybody know that name? Poet who is a favorite of mine. And I was in an anthology of poems, kind of in conversation with him. So I read one of those poems. I only had 5 minutes, and I read this poem. Trump Phoenix, Food. And the ones that are just, he brands himself pretty deeply. So the ones that are in his voice in this book are all in italics. So Trump Phoenix, Food. So I thought I was in Arizona. I'll read one in his voice, and maybe it won't make anybody angry. I don't happen to make people angry in Spokane. Trump Phoenix, Food. I've never been called one of those food snobs. Fast food is fine, or a well-done strip steak with baked potato and salad. I don't make a thing in the kitchen myself. Meals rob me of time. I'll go without or else grab a burger or turkey sandwich to take on the plane. I'll have a piece of pound cake when offered. Same with corn on the cob. Regular food, that's what I like. I drink coffee, soda, water, juice. Helps me think. Of course, I know my way to restaurants as fine as any. I own many, want to own more. My gift is making dreams come true. The whole country is now my team. So I read that, and at the end of the 4 readers who were the guests in Cochise County, a woman came up to me and said, "Thank you for reading that. I'm a Trump voter. I want to buy this book." And I said, "You're not going to like this book." But she insisted, and she was a writer. And I said, "Well, this is parody, the poem that you liked, and you just might not like this book." But she insisted, and I think that with the 41 poems that are in his voice, which is the majority, the Trump supporters would actually like this book in a way. And yesterday I was in Albuquerque, and I have a poem to Donald Trump from Albuquerque, and I mentioned I was going to be in Austin today, and somebody in the audience said, "Could you read the Austin poem?" And I said, "I'll read the Austin poem." And we ended up having a discussion, because it's not like when I played with Jerry and we played the tune Texas and talked about playing in the state capitol. There's nothing that's ostensibly Austin about this. But so we talked about that. But I have one called Trump Austin, and I have to find it. It's on page 51. But here we are in Malvern Books. Trump Austin, Remorse. I heard said I've never apologized. I was sorry for private locker room talk that was so wrongly leaked and was soon forgotten. I was honestly surprised it was a big deal. Come on, no one died and it was a long time ago. But boom, there goes the press with all their gloom and doom for one poorly phrased remark. Let it ride, they could have done. But no, I've said sorry, so now we're good and I can continue working for the United States people. I won the vote of the majority of legal citizens. I know that's true. We'll make America great. Yes, we will. By the way, with this book, I said it's going to make you smile or groan. So I'll just make you groan. So that's Donald Trump, Trump Austin, Remorse. I'll read one more in his voice. Actually, I'll read one that's in his voice that at the end of that show in Spokane, when the woman who said, "Can't we give him a chance?" We kept talking. She says, "Look, he isn't even taking a salary. He's working for us." And I had a couple poems that I said, well, let's give him the last word. And of course, I gave him the last word, then I editorialized, so I got the last word. But there's a poem in here called Trump Newark. And I got to find it here. Trump Newark, language. What is it with this word emoluments? No one has ever heard of such a thing. But there's the failing New York Times finding precious space to knock me again. Nonsense, nonsense, look it up. U.S. presidents do what they want when it comes to having side interests. That's the law. My team's having a field day seeking the truth. We're against the terrible liberal New York Times and Washington Post, both losers, fighting to stay in business. Nothing here to see, but every day they need stories. Big crimes sell papers. Emoluments, they're writing the dumbest story in all history. So I'll just read a couple more and then see if anybody has any questions or say, and I'll play some music instead. But I'll read one of the other ones to Donald Trump. It's just, I can choose any of these, and for me it's a process. And when I was in Portland, I did a house concert and friends. Everybody there were musicians. And I was reading it, and they were listening, and then we played some music, and they said, wow, so we're just here for your therapy. You know, we like to read these things. So I'll just read this one. I don't even know what's in this, but it's in the book, so it's not bad. To Donald Trump from Memphis. I keep wondering, Donald, you'll make the finish line. Every day, new drama of your own design. Your Alabama man, Sessions, is typical. Racist snake as Attorney General. How you'll shake things up, Donald. You're our senile grandpa, weirdo successor to smart Obama. You'll talk to anyone, offer a stake in the plans, a day or two later act like that conversation never happened, on your way to making even more mess. Donald, we grasp the now obvious fact that you're an insane crackpot. We can't pretend you away. Darkness, your darkness. I'll read what I wrote, what I read yesterday in Albuquerque, since it was just yesterday. And since it was, had the person who asked about, does the one in Austin have to really do with Austin? I said, well, just have to put places into it. It makes sense. So the one in Albuquerque actually does make sense for Albuquerque. To Donald Trump from Albuquerque. Donald, your embrace of meaninglessness is fearsome. You'll say or tweet anything. Sure, replenish nukes. It's only costing $1 trillion. Just as you've run businesses into the ground, so now the whole U.S. Donald, your lunacy is astounding, and no one in power is threatening to stop you. To you, they're just words. God bless, Donald. Nukes, as in nuclear warfare. Donald, you wipe out millions of people. In return, we could lose Boston, Miami, San Diego, or Seattle. You dare start something, and the effects will ripple. Sure, big boy, double down. Bluff those Chinese. Wonderful, isn't it? So this is what this book is about. A little bit, both goes a long way, but kind of keeps going and going. So, any questions or thoughts? Now that I've depressed everybody. I got to deal with this every day, but it's kind of nice having these 14-line. A friend in Eugene, Oregon, who's a long-time Alaska guy who's now there, has a book coming out. We just stay in touch over like a couple times a year, and I sent him this book when it came out, and then I saw him, and he came to my event in Eugene, and he said, God, and he teaches in communications at a 2-year college, Lane Community College in Eugene. He said, boy, my colleagues really liked it, and they were impressed. They were really sonnets, you know, so it's kind of keeps it short, 14 lines. Questions, thoughts, requests, comments?
So as
I was driving today from Albuquerque to here, but what I have a volume 2 that's going to be coming out. And in fact, on my short list of things to do is to write an essay called "Donald Trump is My Muse." And if I write that well enough, the one thing that's been really interesting is I've never had something that's been so easy to sell. I've had some people will just say no, and then somebody will show them one, and then they'll say no, but yes. Or I've had people buy 2 or 3 or 4 of these things because they just go, oh, I can give this to so-and-so. And when I'm not in a bookstore but selling them like on my own elsewhere, I've been doing 2 for 1. Say, here, buy one and then give one to somebody. And it's been, because we're in a historic time in this. So yes and no, in that I had a funny answer yesterday. Somebody asked a similar question. I just said, well, I'm obsessed. But having written it, boy, I was fine for about 6 or 8 weeks, and then I started I have a few websites where I go to, and I'll go 2, 3, 4 times a day to see what there's one alternate where, just see what people are writing, and there's all these essays coming, throughout the day, and I just want to see what the latest thing that people are talking about. And it's like, I'm just this outsider, but I guess I know more than a lot of people because I'm staying in touch. And the Donald Trump is my muse is realizing that since I'm going to start that on Tuesday. So July 4th will be how many weeks after November 8th election. And in that time, I've written 71, and the next one has 67. So I've written 138 sonnets. It's sort of about this this fellow. So and I think, the volume 1 was a joke, but there will be a volume 2, and I already can picture, sadly, a volume 3 that will be a cover that will be all black with just white name. Trump Sonnets volume 3, and that'll be my end of it, I think. But there may be more. I think it's just going to get worse until it gets a lot better. I have a friend, I don't know him that well, but somebody Jerry knows. If you know banjo music in this culture and time and country, a fellow in Ithaca, New York, a guy named Richie Stearns, who was a great banjo player. And he has a group he calls the Evil City String Band. And Ithaca, I think, and he explained it because I saw him, and he was with the Evil City String Band. He said, I think it's Ithaca, Berkeley, and Bloomington, Indiana are evil cities. Austin could be. Austin is weird, but but you could be the evil city too, especially for Texas. But it's like they're just full of people who are critical thinkers. Is what they are. So one of the last ones, actually probably the last one other than the final sonnet, is to Donald Trump from Ithaca. Do you think it will all be as easy as this, Donald? Are you kidding? Just wait. If your alt-right fans indeed practice hate, theirs will seem like joy compared to the ugly incidents ahead. You're the enemy, Donald, a madman. People don't just hate your churlish stupidity, you ingrate. They loathe your total being, your measly intellect. You're such an upside-down man. Everything you say, do, or touch is wrong. You're a brazen crook, Mr. Donald Trump. The duty of good U.S. citizens is to resist. We're many. Days are long. You, sir, are going to be shamed, then dumped. So, after writing that, I go, I'm on top of the world for a few hours. And then it's like, there's something else, and then we'll see what happens. But
maybe I'll just read one of those a day instead of a couple of days.
Yeah,
and then at the end, I'll still feel the same way when I get back on the news side. I'll sort of be continuing.
Well, it's funny because I've tried, and Jerry has been involved with this project from the beginning, and he's involved in the second one too that's going to be coming, is that I've had a number of people say, well, you're going to sell, there's such interest in this, and these are good and they're different, and I've tried to get like a national review with this, and I haven't yet. I've gotten a couple smaller, like a blog, and there's actually one place that had the review, is the Washington Independent Review of Books, and their review was, thank God for the First Amendment, or this guy's going to be out of the country. But it was smart and funny, and I just go, great. And I'm actually trying to get that person to write a blurb for the second, the volume 2. But to me, I go, God, this could be what a nice bathroom book. You just have one of these, and it's like, you can just, in a minute, you just go, oh yeah, I got a little something, and it's, there's people that are, hey, Donald Trump is my muse, I'm going to write that essay, and it's like, in a sense, I was thinking as on these long drives I do, like, what am I going to say about that? And the fact that I think if I've averaged like 5 sonnets a week, and I don't write them like that, I write them pretty quick, so some days or weeks I'm not writing at all, but some days I'm writing a bunch. Boy, and since the election, I've been 5 days a week, probably. I've been writing, averaging like 5 sonnets a week. So it's not bad, I guess. But I don't know how much I'm going to do now. It's like now I got to get the volume 2 up and about. I keep traveling and doing this. Questions, thoughts, comments?
I have one comment.
Yeah.
I can see where you would feel good after writing those sonnets, but what's me, if I was reading those, I'd feel worse, you know, every day. I don't think I'd, even in the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, it's like, and that's completely understandable. Some people, I think, have gotten this, and they told me they get solace from reading some of these things. But it just depends on the,
Yeah.
I think that's how we deal with it. If I didn't write this, I'd be doing something else to try to deal with it. But for me, this works for me,
Yeah.
and then being out in public is what I do anyway. But it's different because playing the tunes and doing the poems have nothing to do. I mean, I've done shows on this tour, and this is the new book. I don't even put it out. You know, people aren't coming because I've written Trump songs. I'm not Allen Ginsberg. I'm just the guy doing what I do. But I've had some people, if I talk to them, the guy I played music with in Elko, Nevada last weekend, we made it, you know, it was like part of my payment was one of my books, and gave him another one. Then I showed him this. He said, "Oh, I want this one." You know, just like quick. Like if I had given him 3, he would have been happy to have 3 and given them to people who he knows. I was in a conservative. Has anybody here been to Dillon, Montana? Bill's been everywhere. It's in southwest Montana. There's an arts council that had me through. It's about 4,000 people. It's in Beaverhead County. It's a big county. There's a place, sometimes it's the coldest spot in the continental U.S. Wisdom, Montana is in that county. Beaverhead County. Dillon is the county seat. And there's a little college there, but it's a pretty conservative place. There's a little bookstore. That bookstore would fit 4 or 5 of that bookstores would fit in the space of this. And I was there because I was working in an elementary school. I was doing a couple other public events. And I happened to be in the store, and I just said, well, I happen to have this book. And it was a cool bookstore, too. It had a lot of good natural world books. They had local writers, and I showed her. She bought 5 right from there. I said, no, it has national distribution. You can get it from the store. No, I'm going to buy them from you. And I said, oh, are you like Alaska, where I know it's a conservative place, like, and a libertarian conservative place, like about like 60-40, 65-35. She said, oh no, we're 80-20 here. It's very conservative. But I know 5 people who would buy this in a second. And you know, just interesting like that I'm finding that this book is getting around in that way. And when I'm doing the events too, I've been saying, what can I do to get this out there more for the people who do feel better about a book like this? And in Olympia, one of the attendees said, you need to get yourself arrested. And I said, no. Although then in Seattle, folks said, well, you know, this is what I think I'm going to do this next week, is to read some of the poems, kind of like how I was reading them here, maybe play a little bit of solo fiddle, and then just do a bunch of YouTube things, like, and just make it for like 45 seconds, because these poems are short, and just have a few of them, and maybe some of the lighter / funnier ones, and then other ones too, and just put it out there and then see what happens, and then we'll roll the dice and see. But yeah, I mean, not even a bathroom book. I understand.
Sorry.
Yes.
My question was about confronting Trump supporters in a bookstore.
What's that?
My question is about confronting Trump supporters in a bookstore, given that flies in the face of the general kind of, you know, just stereotypical view or generalization of a Trump supporter. How has that been for you, seeing that up close and dealing with the subject?
It was only in Spokane. I think in a place, if it's advertised or marketed a certain way, a Trump supporter probably isn't going to come. Although, like when I had my George W. Bush book, one of the reviews was saying, well, it really like humanizes him. Like there's one here, in fact, that's Trump Queen's father. I learned so very much from my father, who was very smart with the real estate, so bright with money. Rent couldn't be late, or there were consequences. I'd rather die than anger him. He'd get in a lather if I missed directions or made him wait a minute or two. My father was great, made me what I am today. No other person had such influence. He was rich and he was so smart. He loved to work hard and knew how to enjoy himself. Yankee fan because he was a winner. He pitched deals all over. He moved fast, always forward. Then on to the next. He really taught me. I don't know, you know, I mean,
That
they
sounds like a
wouldn't like.
direct quote.
What's that?
That sounds like a direct quote from Donald Trump.
But yeah, if he ever spoke in sonnets. But it's like, but it's the kind of thing that it's like, I remember I read this actually in Breaux Bridge. There's a woman who's spending time in I've spent time in Louisiana. That's where I pay rent, even though I'm an Alaska resident. There's a woman she's a dancer. Her husband plays music. She's from out of state. They're there part of the year, but her day job, I don't know if she's retired now, but she's a therapist. And I showed her that because she was curious about what I've been up to. She said, wow, that's really insightful, and it's, so somebody who is a Trump supporter, I mean, to think that the people who are in resistance, you see the ones here that are in his voice, you go, well, you can hear it because it's parody or satire, but also though it sounds like him, and it's like he's a walking human doing what he does, but it's a strange time. But I'd like to think that one person in Spokane said, can't we have a dialogue? I said, well, we're having a dialogue right now, and I did read some of the poems that, do you agree with that? The poems that are in his voice? In a way, it's a discussion. To me, it's a parody, but in a way, it's how he thinks. And so in a way, it's, it shows to me that he's, in the second one, the poems are broader than commentaries, but one of the things I just said, this is an indictment of our culture and the education system, I think, more than anything, that, at least to my mind. But we all have our own minds and we're making them up, and if this can keep me going in some ways and nudge a few people to look at it, like the woman who said, well, he's not even taking a salary. I go, well, if you read further, none of this is a surprise to anybody who's spent time, and I'm just an outsider, like I said, but I've just found it fascinating, so I've been reading a lot about him throughout. That's where this is coming in the form of science. Questions, thoughts?
Probably throw in more minor tunes.
Minor
tunes.
That would be, that's a trick. That's a trick. Let me
It'd
see.
be a whole new art form.
Yeah. What I can do is I can play a waltz. I play a waltz.
Minor waltz.
I have a waltz. Actually, it's a D waltz with some C's. I have this waltz called the Fairbanks Cabin Waltz. I don't know if you can play that, Beth, on my fiddle. That's in standard.
I don't remember the tune. If I could-
You want to play it, Jerry? I'll play it. You have to get it to D, or you can play it on fiddle. I'll play it on the mandolin. Or I'll just play it by myself. But I'll play this waltz and then see if you have any questions or requests and thoughts. I don't think this is questions for me. It's a minor note. Everybody here at Malvern Books, thank you all for coming. Especially thank Jerry and Beth for playing, because they're going to come up, we're going to play one more tune, and then if you do have like a last question, or if you have a question right now, answer. Otherwise, I got books and CDs that are for sale. Figure out some deal. I think I even made a deal where I said all the CDs are 10 instead of 15, and Jerry's on several of the CDs, and I'm on all the CDs. I wrote the books that are on that table. And we'll see if you buy a few books, maybe they'll they'll keep a few of the Trump sonnets for others who come in here. I think we know. I just have met people all over the place who who get some solace from that. So you know people who would appreciate at least some of those poems in there. So let's play a fiddle tune of some sort. So we can do twin fiddle, Jerry, if you want another eight. You want to play that June Apple that we were playing?
Yeah.
Sandy Boys? You want to play Sandy Boys? You want to play Sandy Boys on the?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
How much band have you played in public?
A lot.
Have you been playing a lot? God, I know. God, Beth does everything. See if you can get that so you're set with that. Coming out